Welcome to How to Make an eBook. This afternoon's really interesting look inside this world of audiobooks. Sorry, not ebooks. Very, very different product. And you'll see some of what that difference is in much the same way as we'll describe the very different way that you go about producing and distributing an ebook into this afternoon's very, very unorthodox webinar. My name is Dante St. James. I'll be taking you through this afternoon. I'll just start sharing the screen and we'll get underway. First up, a quote from J.K. Rowling, who we'll definitely know from the writers of the Harry Potter series, and a whole universe that's expanded around that. Imagine a radio station that played nothing but audiobooks, so that every day you could tune in to listen to a new adventure instead of what Kim and Kanye are wearing before the traffic report. She's certainly got a way with words. I guess that's why she's made her millions and billions. She also, funnily enough, doesn't narrate her own audiobooks. I heard her once say that if people wanted to listen to me talk, I probably would have been a radio announcer from the very beginning. Different people are very capable of different things. When it comes to audiobooks, the good news is you don't necessarily have to do the whole thing all by yourself. What we're going to look at today is whether it's worth creating an audiobook at all, how to create the script from your ebook, whether to use a recording studio or to record at home, or to use a narrator or a voiceover, or use a production company or a producer. And we're going to look at also how to prepare your associated audiobook assets, the things that make it not just an ebook or not just a book, but an audiobook specifically. This is obviously not going to give you any drastic technical details apart from some really vague stuff that applies to at least one of the distributors of audiobooks. But what it will assume is that you have something that you can turn into an audiobook. So starting off with maybe an ebook that you've produced, whether that's a long form or a short form ebook, preferably a longer form ebook, because when it comes to audiobooks, we kind of like to let it just play and just get on with our day and do our thing and have it playing in the background or in the car when we're driving to and from work or to and from appointments. It's a great way to sort of prepare, I guess, to learn something without necessarily having to take specific time out to learn that thing. Although I must admit, one of the great little tools I've been doing with audiobooks and hardcover books recently, or at least on Kindle, is that I'm listening and reading at the same time. And I've found that I'm able to actually take in a lot more information and retain that information if I'm doing both at the same time. It requires special time just to do the reading like it would with any other book. But I find that I seem to be able to retain a lot more information by having both the auditory coming through and the visual coming through, and then the work of my imagination to fill those gaps as well. This is brought to you by the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program, brought to you by Business Station across Queensland, Northern Territory and Western Australia. Specifically in Brisbane and rest of Queensland is Regional Development Australia, and in partnership with Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory, where I happen to be. So let's get on with it. A little bit about me. I'm an ASBAS Digital Solutions Advisor, as you probably guessed. That's where you got to this thing from. I'm a NEAT Program Mentor, which is the New Enterprise Incentive Scheme, which is helping people to start a business and giving them a paid benefit along the way. Facebook Community Trainer, which is one of the jobs that I love so much because it gets me in front of thousands of businesses every year to train them on the best ways of using the Facebook family of apps. Also work with Google's Digital Springboard program as a training delivery partner in Northern Australia. And funnily enough, being the voiceover of 17 audiobooks that have been written by others. So I haven't got my own one out there yet. I'm still working on that, and I will be voicing my own one. But I've been very proud to be the voiceover of 17 different audiobooks. Now, I have to admit, 13 of those audiobooks were textbooks. So they weren't particularly compelling listening, and you cannot buy those off an app store or Audible. But there are a few of them are out there that I'm under contract to not tell you what they are, which is just ridiculous. And the whole contract thing, that's something we're going to cover later on, and why it seems kind of silly. So is it even worth doing an audiobook at all, depending on what the kind of thing you're going to have? Because the genres that are really popular are pretty much that mystery, thrill, and suspense. And it takes about 67 to 68%, would you believe, of all the audiobook sales that go out there. It's a very popular genre, you know, the murder mystery, true crime, thrillers, all that sort of thing. Everything else sort of squeezes into the little piece of the pie, which is around about that 33, 34% of other audiobooks. Does that mean that your self-help guide and your coaching guide is going to be not going well and not finding an audience? Absolutely not, because the audiobook market has just exploded over the last few years. There's other popular genres like history, biographies and memoirs. Self-help and personal development is one of the top categories as well. And then of course there's plenty of others, including things like textbooks and informational books and travel guides and cookbooks are all things that you can translate into the audiobook genre. So how big is the market? Pretty damn big. In America, at least, sorry, this is worldwide, is $2.67 billion in US dollars in 2019, grew up to $3.22 billion in 2020, empowered in part by a lot of bored people stuck at home when it comes to COVID-19 and lockdowns. We're expected to break the $3.6 billion mark in 2021. I wouldn't be surprised if that goes a little bit beyond it, with some parts of the world still going through the whole lockdown process, which is just terrifying. It might be good for audiobooks, but it's not good for people, I don't think. It's also growing remarkably quickly. The US audiobook market size, which has kind of sort of reflected within Australia and New Zealand as well, although not quite as fast because we haven't quite had the same level of lockdowns as what they have over there, is expecting lots of growth. The growth between 2016 and 2020 was quite substantial, but the growth acceleration between 2021 and 2023 is quite substantial as well. More and more people are coming onto platforms like Audible, which makes it very easy for people to consume and keep up with their audiobooks. So there's definitely a market there for you if you want to get into it. It's not completely crowded out. And yes, of course, the bestsellers are always going to get the lion's share, and the superstars and the celebrities are going to get their share as well. There's still room for you to carve out your particular niche on there. And let's face it, these days, sometimes a book and an audiobook are not really for making money. They're about producing yourself a lead magnet or some sort of credibility. If you've got a book or an audiobook out there, it gives you added credibility, and it means that you've got a piece of collateral that you can give to someone that gives them an idea of who you are and what the thing is that you serve. I've been drinking a lot today because my throat's still scratchy after about a week now. So what about Australia? In 2019, audiobooks generated just under $100 million in sales. Bet that surprised you. We're doing pretty well in the audiobook marketplace. The growth is a little bit slower than the US, but it is still growing at around about just slightly under 10% per annum. Now that has accelerated in the last 3 years and expected to still accelerate as more people discover that audiobooks are a great alternative to, say, podcasts and radio stations. In fact, I probably listen to more audiobooks than radio. I don't listen to radio at all. It's been completely displaced by podcasts and audiobooks. Usually I've got certain authors that I'm going to follow. For instance, I love Matthew Riley's stuff. It's a rollicking good time rumble through the jungle of Australia and Antarctica and wherever he chooses to take his adventures. I really enjoy it. There's other things such as the Ready Player One. So Ernest Cline, who wrote Ready Player One, now just wrote Ready Player Two. And I'll be listening to that one very shortly as soon as I have a few more plane rides and a few more long commutes, 3-hour drives down the track, for instance. It's still very much a growth area, but it's not like it's a new area. It's still generating around $100 million in sales just in Australia. That's just audiobooks. We're not talking about eBooks. We're not talking about Kindle. We're not talking about hardcover books. We're talking just audiobooks. That is a big amount of money. So you can get some of that just by simply producing your material into a format that's going to help you to make that money as well. Well, you get $100 million, but hey, you never know. You could be the next J.K. Rowling. So let's get underway on how we approach making a publish-ready audiobook, the kind of book that you can just insert into Audible or insert into another marketplace, and it becomes available for sale and download from people through different apps. Now, Audible obviously is the most obvious one. It's the biggest one by a long shot. Like, it's so much bigger than everyone else. It's like Google and search engines. Audible's like that for audiobooks. It's the primary place where people find audiobooks, use audiobooks, keep their audiobooks in a library. I'm an Audible subscriber, for instance, and I love having that new book every month. It gives me something to look forward to. It's like having a new series coming out, or new episodes of your favorite TV show coming out on something like Netflix. It's something you do look forward to. So the first step we're going to look at is creating your script. Now, creating a script involves converting your ebook into something that can be read aloud. Now, not all things that are written are meant to be read aloud. There's a kind of a format that goes with it. Sometimes it will be so stuffy and formal that reading it aloud is really difficult to do and still have people engage with you. Other times, though, you've got the ability to be able to really get so deep inside a character. Now, when it comes to this, you've got to consider too whether your audiobook is going to be read by multiple people, like a cast. So sometimes you might read a book that's from a very big author that has a cast of narrators in it. It's almost like a full production. It's quite incredible. It's like I'm listening to, what I've been told that the old time radio theater series used to be like, something like that. So you'd imagine it's quite, not over the top, but it's really well produced. But most of them are just narrated by a single narrator, like me talking right now, just narrating someone else's work. So you can remove links from that. So what you got to do is if you've got any links or images or captions or any of that sort of thing, that gets taken out. So you can't have a photo and then have a narrator just describe the photo. Or if you've got a chart or a graph or something like that, you can't have a narrator just sort of ad lib and say, and now we've got a chart in front of us that represents something to do with the data between. It's just not going to work. So what you got to do is take all that out and realize that not all ebooks are going to be well suited to be actually read aloud by a narrator or by yourself. Sometimes you have to just go, I've got an ebook version and I've also got an audiobook version. So what I'm going to do is take the ebook version and convert it completely over to something which is suitable to be read aloud. Now, anyone who's ever written things like radio ads or written something that they're going to produce into a podcast, for instance. So I'm written podcasts now. There's a certain style of writing you've got to write that makes it able to be said aloud. Now, there's a lot of very short, sharp SEO related sentences don't convert well to voice. The voice needs to be a little bit more natural. The sentences can be a bit longer. The sentences are not necessarily grammatically correct. Whilst Grammarly might do a good job of correcting all your grammar on a Word document or on a website, it does a really crap job of trying to set you up to read a script. It's very bad at scripts because scripts by their very nature are so much more colloquial and free-flowing. Conversation is very different to prescription when it comes to writing on a page. So yeah, if you remove all those links and images and captions and things like click here to to get your free course and that sort of thing, you've got to rip all that out and have it replaced with something more appropriate for the medium. Calls to action don't work well when it comes to ebooks because you've got to consider that not everyone's reading an ebook on a device that they can access the internet by. So likewise, on an audiobook, most people are driving or they're in a train or they're doing something else like cooking in the kitchen. They're not sitting there trying to access the internet to go with your call to action or your link through to your resources. It's just not how audiobooks work. Audiobooks are very much like, think of it like radio. You're not sit crowded around the radio like it's 1936 and you're listening to, the bombing of somewhere on the news of the world. It's not like that. It's more like it's something which happens in the background, like music in a lift or the Coles radio that you're listening to in Coles. You're not really listening to it. You just know that you're aware of it, right? That's how audiobooks largely go. Next, you've got to pick an approach, and this is what we're going to go into a bit of depth with because each one of these approaches have their pros and their cons and their costs as well. So if you're going to pick an approach, we can look at doing it yourself at home. Now, I suspect if you're a small business and you're not a famous person, I'm looking at the list of people here, and whilst I recognize a few names, I don't think any of you are celebrities and have millions of dollars to spend on your ebook. I'm probably right there, right? So you're probably going to end up doing this one yourself at home. But there is another option, is doing it yourself in a studio, for instance. Now, I've got a podcast studio set up in my home. I've got, you probably can't see it from the camera here because I've got everything set up, I've got a ring light that makes sure I come through clearly. I've got my podcast style microphone and a backup in case that one breaks. I've got audio suppression foam on my desk, so it sits in front of my screen so that it sort of makes the sound feel a little bit more rich and a little less bouncy. Now, that sort of setup is not going to be in most people's homes. A lot of you are going to be running this from your kitchen table. You're going to run it on an absolute shoestring. But if you've got access to a studio, and I've got more details on that a little bit later, where they have all that stuff set up, then you're able to produce something that does sound really good and sounds so much more clean. Hiring a narrator is another way. So I've been hired as a narrator before, and it's a really good experience. I've learned some very big lessons from it though. Talking for 8 hours a day is not fun, and it doesn't sound good on your podcast or on your audiobooks. Or you can hire a narrator and a producer, so you've got someone to actually run it like a project manager for your audiobook. You can record it yourself and then hire a producer to fix it up. So you record all the stuff at home or even in a studio, and then you send it off to them and they slice and dice it up and get it all produced and all the effects that make your voice sound nice and rich and calm and expressive. And then you can just throw in the towel and hire a producer to do the lot, because let's face it, who has got the time? So that might be the option for you, but bear in mind that's going to be expensive. Let's take a look at these. So recording yourself at home obviously is going to be a lot less expensive than other methods of doing this, but it will come in at a lower quality. Now, whilst I have a very nice Rode mic that I've bought, and Rode, a great Australian audio company, all my mics are Rode. I really like their stuff. It's great quality. It's still not going to be as good as in a studio. Whilst my $200 microphone might be a lot of money to me, in a recording studio capacity, $200 is just, they pay more than that for a stand. Seriously, they'll pay thousands for microphones. So the level of money you're going to spend on a microphone is going to have an effect on the quality of the voice being carried across. Now, this becomes a bit of a problem, because you get to a point where we can't really hear much of a difference between, say, the quality of me talking into this microphone like a radio announcer, or the same thing of doing it in a studio. It doesn't sound a heck of a lot different. In fact, I do a lot of TV and radio voiceovers from this very spot with this very microphone that I'm using right now with the same setup. So it is possible to use this for quite good quality if you know the right setup and you're not trying to use something like a little microphone that runs through your laptop, for instance. You want something which is external, which plugs in through your laptop, or in some cases, even goes through a little desk. And you want to really give yourself an idea of whether your voice is actually listenable. Now, this is going to take a little bit of self-honesty and a little bit of self-assessment and a whole lot of self-awareness of whether you've got the kind of voice that people want to listen to. Now, I had to overcome that. I was told like quite young that I had a very radio announcer kind of voice, and I've taken advantage of that and made use of it, and it appears that that was actually the case. Now, that isn't the case for everybody. We've all got different strengths and different weaknesses, and some people just don't have the kind of voice that people can listen to for long. And when you consider that an audiobook can go for hours and hours and hours and hours, 7 to 9 hours is around about the average length of an audiobook. It could be much, much longer, 20, 24, 48 hours. Oh, you can imagine how you go if that person on the other end has a voice that's like your fingernails scratching down a chalkboard. It's not a very pleasant experience. So if your voice isn't particularly listenable, you're going to create a really bad experience for people who are wanting to listen to the book, and they're not going to learn anything, particularly if your book is very, I guess, educational. You want people to learn something. If it's got a lesson in it, or you're trying to position yourself as a brand, sometimes the best thing to do to position yourself as a brand is get yourself out of the way of the brand and let yourself shine through without your voice breaking it all up. And like Jackie's just said in the chat, so many times we've been turned off by the narrator alone. I've listened to so many books which I thought had amazing content in them, but because the author wanted to do their own voiceover, it absolutely ruined it. And they might have that really squeaky voice, or they might have this a very noticeable speech impediment. Like I've got a slight lisp, for instance, and it's because I did some damage to my mouth when I was young, and I've just stupid enough to go and put in one of those tongue ring things when I was stupid things we do. Get in the radio, put a bar of metal in your mouth. Let's see how that affects your career. Stupid things we do when we're young, right? I've still managed to be able to compensate for that, and I've learned techniques to be able to work around my lisp and around my impediments. But some people just have impediments that are just not able to be brought down into a manageable state. They can become really annoying to people to listen to. Accents are also a thing. Not everybody can listen to the Aussie accent. In fact, a recent survey I saw run by one of the news.com.au kind of newspapers around the world judged that the Australian accent is actually kind of annoying to most people. The American accent was judged as the most annoying. The New Zealand accent was just slightly under as a very annoying accent, and then Australian. But the ones that people seem to like were English, Scottish, Irish, those kind of accents, and then those which are, say, for instance, accents from other backgrounds, such as Spanish. So if someone's a Spanish speaker speaking English, that's considered to be quite sexy. But not everyone's kind of keen on the Australian accent. So if you're looking at a global audience, sometimes the worst thing you can do is get on your Aussie voice and your ochre and go, "G'day, mate, how you doing? Let's go." And I'll start quoting Kath and Kim again. It just isn't quite where they're going. Now, Jackie just mentioned there is software that can change voice quality, but I've never tried it, so I'm wondering about it, and not up to the whole audiobook thing yet, but I am interested. Yep, so Jackie, there is software that helps to adjust the quality of your voice a little. We've got a couple of software examples just coming up really, really shortly of things that are able to correct some of the not so much the big problems, so like big speech impediment problems, or the fact that you might have a bit of a shrieky voice, or you might have a bit of a mumbly voice where you're not really, blah, 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 you're kind of mumbling all over the place. It's not going to fix that, but what it can do is help reduce outside noise. It can help sort of deepen the voice quality a bit, not deepen the pitch, but to make it sound a bit more rich. There's certain effects that you can use in software that will do that. Bear in mind, though, you're going to be working with files that are 2 hours, 4 hours, 9 hours, 43 hours long. It's going to be a long, painful process to produce some of these things if you don't get some of the basics right in the first place. And I've got a whole lot of stuff coming up to show you how that all works. So to record at home, you're going to have to use some stuff like, for instance, a good condenser microphone. You can get them at JB Hi-Fi, Harvey Norman, all those places. The good guys sell them as well. They're about $150 and up to get a really decent one. The Yeti series of that one that's shown as a Yeti Blue. The Yeti series are very, very good. Very, very good bang for their buck. I use Rode, R-O-D-E, because they are they're Australian designed, Australian company, and they've got very good support. And I've found that they are very long lasting and durable as well. But Yeti are very good. They're very solid too. Some of them, like the big solid ones, look like a beer can with a hump on top of it. Really good, powerful pickup that's going to help to reduce the surrounding sound that's coming out, like air conditioners, for instance, and buzzing sounds from people drilling in the roof up the top. You'll also probably need a pop filter to eliminate pops and hissing from your reading, because whilst I'm not using a pop filter and I've got about this much distance between me and the mic, that's not how you'll generally voice over. You'll generally voice over a lot closer to the microphone, so you've got a lot more richness coming through your voice. And what that means is that every time I go p, 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 it's going to sound a little bit weird, and it's going to sort of max out the levels on the software that's going to be recording you. Also, using quality headphones for playing back your recordings. You always want to listen through headphones because they give you a far more isolated version of how things sound in general. So you'll be able to hear your levels of your voice going up and down, or whether you're sounding too monotone, or whether there's sort of background clicks and hisses and buzzes. And also you'll hear some of the things that show out in your voice, like as if you've got what I call a juicy voice, like a lot of saliva in your voice. And it does happen when you speak a lot. When you're drying out, your mouth produces so much extra saliva that it becomes like a really juicy, wet voice. And it's not great. It's really, really not great for you. And it doesn't sound good. It's not a good experience for people listening. Now, if you want to record at home, you're going to need this guy. You're going to need Audacity. This is what I was talking about and what Jackie, I think, was referring to, where you can play with some of the quality. Now, Audacity is free software. It's open source. It's great. I've used it many times myself. I'm currently using Adobe Audition because I use the Adobe suite of products, which I'm actually looking over this next 6 to 12 months of phasing out. I want to get rid of the cost of that because I think there's enough great alternatives out there that are free that I'm willing to learn and just save that extra. Well, it's about $80 a month for me at the moment. So it's not the cheapest thing, but to be honest, I make much more than that out of my voice every month. So it's kind of worth it, I suppose. Anyway, that's a discussion for me to have down the track with myself. Garageband is free on Mac and iPad, and it's an Apple product that's allowing you to be able to do similar things like recording voiceovers, music, and all sorts of stuff like that. Audacity, though, is a great place to start. It's fairly simple to use. There's lots of knobs and bells and whistles and buttons and sliders. You're not going to use many of them, and there's a lot of really good presets in there. Like there's a voiceover preset that literally compresses the voice to make it sound richer and to take the edge off the top and reduce things like pops and hisses and hisses like the sibilants on an S when you've got problems with that. The one thing you will need, though, is a quiet room with no echo. Now, I've got a little bit of echo in this room because it's a very tiled. Just about every house in Darwin is tiled. So it's really glossy tiles, bare walls, not a lot of sound calming. So I've got a certain amount of sound calming around me to sort of make that a bit better. So when I talk about sound calming, talk about this acoustic foam. Now, you can buy it really cheap from Wish or on eBay or Kogan. I bought a pack of about, 24 tiles of it. And I'm using maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of them so far. And they're just really effective for reducing the echo off walls and stuff. So when I'm talking to here, it sort of doesn't bounce off the equipment back at me and back into the microphone and cause little delay echoes. It kind of deadens it down a bit and makes it a bit more comfortable to be able to listen to over a period of time. Jackie's have mentioned egg cartons. Yep, egg cartons, they are helpful. Pretty much anything that has larger surface area. So if I bring this up, I've got my one here, one of the ones on here that's on my desk. And this is used to, the extra surface area is what helps disperse the noise and absorb it a little bit. So the foam is very absorptive. So absorbent, I think is the word. So it's able to soak in some of that and not reflect back so much of the sound. So that's what you need, is a large surface area, more than just a flat surface, so that then it can, the sound kind of comes in here. So I'll use my pen as an example. The sound kind of comes in here, hits on one of those fins, and then bounces a little bit out, but some of it bounces back into this fin and then backwards and forwards like that, trapping the sound from actually going back towards you or back towards anything else. It just deadens the sound a bit. Now, some studios can be a little bit too dead, so they can sound like it's very, very, very flat. And sometimes they need to add a little bit of life back into it, depending on what the voiceover is going to be. Don't get too technical on this. Go to Bunnings, go to Officeworks. They all sell this sort of stuff, and it's not particularly expensive. And you don't necessarily need to cover all your walls in it. You don't need to deaden your room completely. You just need a fairly quiet room. If you're doing it in a bedroom, for instance, you may not need any of this at all, because you might have carpet, a rug. You've got curtains, which are fantastic. Curtains are great for calming down sound coming in through windows, and also the reflection coming off from windows. Beds, bed linen, pillows, they're all things that are going to do the same thing. They're going to absorb that noise. So that's why, for instance, you go into a carpeted room and it's nowhere near as echoey as the kind of room that's just all completely tiled on the floors and the wall and the ceiling. It's a very different kind of scenario you've got. Now, I've got lots of things in here trying to calm that sort of noise down a bit. So far, so good. I've been able to get that down, and I can record audiobooks in here. Now, for consistent audio levels, you're going to have to record from roughly the same distance every time you record. This keeps it nice and consistent. There's nothing worse than sound going up and down, up again and down again. There's things you can do in software within Audacity and Adobe Audition and Garageband that can help level that out a bit, but it's a lot easier if you get it right to begin with. If you can get that sound nice and flat, so it's not creating big peaks and troughs in the waveform that's appearing on the screen in front of you, then you've got a much easier job of producing later on. And every every minute you can say I'm producing is a minute you can put into writing the next ebook. The way to make sure you're doing it is to listen to the last recording you did, and then match your tone, your style, and your speed to what you were doing then. Even if you re-record the last couple of sentences of the last recording, you are able to match that. So for instance, if you're going from, I'm speaking quite a very measured monotone, but if I started like this and I was a lot more excited and I was like a much bigger tone and speaking a lot faster, and then I come off it and go, and now listen to the last recording you did and match your tone, style, and speed. I'm not matching them. And it's going to sound really weird when you finish one sentence in one hyped tone and the next sentence in a very even, very calm tone. It's going to sound weird. And that sort of stuff really becomes distracting, so that people don't hear your content. They just hear your voice, and everything is going wrong with it. So record whole chapters from start to end. This is what helps you to maintain some degree of consistency and feel throughout the whole chapter. So if you start off a chapter, read the whole chapter in one sitting and then end the recording. And you can either play with it, you can audio produce it, whatever you want to do. Purposely, what I like to do is record the whole chapter and then record another chapter straight after, but always go back to the previous chapter after a couple of minutes break or 5-10 minutes break, and review how you produce, how you actually projected your voice and the position you used and the speed, the style, the tone that you used in that last chapter to form what you're going to sound like in the next chapter. Because you don't want to be creating that sort of up and down roller coaster effect of fast, slow, hyped, calm. Even the level of your voice, like I might be talking at this level now, but I might be talking at this level then. I'm going up almost an octave in terms of the pitch of my voice. And it's just going to sound weird and it's going to be very distracting. But of course, you're going to get tired. If you're going to record this thing yourself, it's going to get tiring. Your voice is going to get fatigued. I know after a long day of training people, and did it last week, it was just killed me. 8 hours of training people and talking, it gets tiring. So you're going to have to do some things that help offset that. As you tire, your voice will tire, and it will be very noticeable too. So don't do more than 2 hours a day of voiceovers, because it's really going to wreck your voice, and it's going to wreck you. You're just not going to produce a good quality product in the end. And I love having a warm tea with honey and ginger. So I've got a lemon and ginger mix that I use, a Twinings one. Also the T2 one is just, it's divine. So if you can get some really nice tea and add a little bit of honey to provide that sort of little coating in the throat, it's going to help keep your voice nice and smooth, and it's going to help and keep your voice from being unnecessarily fatigued. And always have water nearby you too, so you can now cold water, chilled water is not great, because it's what's going to do is shock your larynx into a bit of a reaction, which can cause you to cough or to become scratchier and drier. So room temperature table water or warm honey and ginger or lemon and ginger tea with some honey is going to be great for you too. The ginger is really just a personal taste, because I don't like things to be too sweet, and it kind of adds a zing into it. So yeah, lemon, honey, whatever it is, even just warm water that you use with a little honey in it to help to lubricate your voice is going to be really, really helpful, and keep it nice and smooth and consistent as you're going along. So I've got a few hot recording tips. Play back your recordings using the headphones, remember, so you can pick up all the little problems that might be there, and you might have to record a chapter because your voice was kind of really weird in that last one. You can record in mono. Now, this won't make sense to you until you open up your software like Audacity or one of those, but trust me, by recording in mono, you're reducing background noise. When you record in stereo, you're going to have different parts of your voice coming in different ways. Now, particularly people move, we move about. Now, you're trying to keep a nice consistent thing, but I'm always moving my voice, my head around. I might start off over here facing the microphone, but then over the period of the reading, I've kind of drifted over here, and eventually I've drifted over here, and the level is coming through the microphone is going to change quite dramatically. So try to record in mono, because that will reduce that sort of up and down of that moving around, because that can be equally distracting if you're recording in audio, recording in stereo. And don't play with effects on your recordings until you've completed the whole thing. So what you want to do is use one set of effects that's going to be applied across all of your recordings. That's why you kind of need a consistent voiceover Narrators are really good at this. We're very good at keeping that one tone, that one feel, that one pace through the whole thing. So you've got that ability to be able to apply that one setting to process over it that then evens it all out nicely. And save and export your audio constantly. So as soon as you've done a recording, save it and export it. Oh my goodness, it can be so painful when you've done like 2 hours of recording and then you realize that you've gone to lunch and you didn't save it and you come back and you shut it down and go, uh-oh, I just lost that recording. It can be so painful to do that. And I haven't done it with 2 hours of recording, but I've certainly done it with a whole podcast of 15 minutes before. And that meant I had to take another 15 minutes to record it and another half an hour to produce it. It was just really, really annoying. So please try and do that. So if you want to record yourself, but you want to use a studio, it's relatively low cost in comparison to having producers do it all for you. It is really better quality. You really do notice it. Like when I do voiceovers in a radio recording studio, the quality that comes through is it is dramatically different. Like I can hear it. Now, through something like FM radio, you're not going to pick up that difference in quality too much. But through headphones, while you're listening to audiobook, while you're jogging or something, you're going to hear that difference. It's going to make a really noticeable difference. The problem is recording yourself in a studio is that it's still your voice and you still have to produce it. All you're doing in the studio is just recording yourself, just using someone else's place and someone else's equipment. You still have to do all the hard work later on of producing, and it's still your voice. If you're not happy with your voice, and let's face it, most people hate their own voices, then you're going to have to listen to a lot of your voice when it comes up. Excuse me. I've been using my voice a lot today, clearly, and I haven't got my honey and ginger tea with me. Renting a recording studio runs from about $30 an hour to around $200 an hour. So it depends on who it is, where you are, how many other recording studios are nearby. $30 an hour seems probably around about average for a very sort of run-of-the-mill, very simple one. You probably will end up needing a person to run the recordings for you. It's not like you plug in your own laptop and off you go. It's a very different kind of set of circumstances. Sometimes you just want to hire a soundproofed room or a booth, and then you're just going to do it with your own equipment inside that booth and your own computer. That's fine too. You can do that, and that's actually quite possible using things like rehearsal studios. So a lot of cities have rehearsal studios for musicians that they rent out. That's a cheaper way of doing it. Getting a recording studio that's actually got all the equipment and a sound engineer to record it for you, that's when you're going to come into that $200, $300 an hour. Now, searching for podcast studios or rehearsal studios or music recording studios on Google will help you to find the kind of place you're looking for when it comes to what's available in your town or in your city. Now, you could go down the path of hiring a narrator. That's what people have done with me before. It does get more expensive because you're not just paying for recording, you're paying for a person, and people come at an hourly rate. So the advantages that would be that you do get a much better quality. At some point when I'm going to write a book that's maybe not a book about me or a lesson that I produced about me or for me, it's not going to have me in it. Then I'm going to actually pay someone else to be the narrator of that story. Some very commonly used narrators can be people like Avery Brooks and Will Wheaton, who, funnily enough, both come from Star Trek. So Will Wheaton from Star Trek: The Next Generation, who was a young guy called Wesley Crusher in that. And the other one is Avery Brooks, who has beautiful African-American man with this just rich, just glorious voice that just delivers so powerfully, and like the voice is incredible. And he's from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which had followed Star Trek The Next Generation. So there's quite a history of Star Trek people actually doing that. And then there's people like Sir Patrick Stewart or Sir Ian McKellen, who have delivered a lot of audiobooks as well. So you can go to that level and get a celebrity. Most narrators are not that. Most narrators are voiceover artists, like me. We just do voiceovers for radio ads. We do voiceovers for TV ads. We just know how to express and pace and be able to take a script and make it something quite listenable. Now, even if you're hiring a narrator, you've got to kind of check out what it is that they're actually going to do and what you're going to do, because you're going to still have to edit it and you're still going to have to produce it. So you're still going to have to put some effects on it. Now, a lot of voiceover studios and voiceover companies who have various people on their books, They will do some of the editing and the production for you. So they'll calm the sound down, make it sound richer, take out the breath breaks, take out those sounds that are going on in the background, and make it sound really smooth and really clear. But when you're hiring a narrator, you got from around $40 now to well over $180 now, depending upon who it is, what their experience is, and how much they rate themselves as being a great voiceover. You'll need to brief them absolutely thoroughly. You cannot leave any room for misinterpretation. You may even need to sit down with them just to get across what you want the tone of it and the feel of the work to be. Asking for a demo of their work, but even more importantly, getting them to sample even just a few paragraphs of your work to audition them is an absolute must. I do quite a lot of auditions. Some of them I win, some of them I don't. And what you'll find is that they'll just listen to 3, 4, 5 different people, and they'll just choose the one that just really seems to capture the spirit of what they're trying to produce there. Get a second opinion though, because as we probably know, we don't always all make the right decisions on business decisions. So get someone who knows your business quite well, who understands what you're trying to do, and get them to listen to those auditions as well. Most voiceover artists are going to have no problem with doing a quick sample read just to show you what is possible, when they can see there's possibly hundreds or thousands of dollars at stake for them to do another reading. You look for voiceover artists online, or just look for radio voiceovers or podcast voiceovers or audiobook voiceovers. Things like Upwork and Elancer and Fiverr also have people doing voiceovers, but you'll probably find that most of those are in the Philippines or in America. There's not a lot of Australians on there, and most of those Australians are people who are radio announcers who are currently out of work because they all seem to have been sacked in the last year for some reason. They're the kind of people who are generally doing that from home, from their home studios. Things to be aware of. Yes, be very clear about what you expect and what your voiceover or narrator is going to actually deliver for you. Ensure that your contract doesn't stipulate royalties. Now, this is a little trap. If you can sign off a contract with someone and there's something hidden in there that says that they will also get royalties on what you've sold on your audiobooks, you don't want that. You just want a flat fee, just a flat fee to either do the whole thing, or at least an hourly rate, or a per 10,000 words rate. So if you're looking at around about $3,000 for 10,000 words, or $300 for 10,000 words, that's sort of getting to the upper atmosphere of where the average Australian voiceover may be. A narrator should follow the same guidelines as if you were reading it. So everything we're talking about with you reading it, so the quality of the sound, making sure you got the equipment, making sure you got the sound calmed environment, they've got to follow those same rules as what you would too. And a lot of these guys, they're doing it from home. They are doing it from home, and they're not going to have as great a control over their environment as they would have had, say, in a radio studio or a recording environment. So just bear in mind that when you get that recording from them, you've got to make sure that they're going to be able to replicate that environment that they put in their demo on their work for you as well. Because the last thing you want to do is be caught with really, really bad, terrible voiceovers. You can also hire a narrator and a producer. It's very expensive, but you do get the best quality product. So when you've got someone doing it all for you, they're doing the scripting, they're doing the reading, they're doing all the de-breathing and the de-essing and the de-ing and all those things that you want to do to make it sound really good. So you're going to end up with a really good product. Or you can record it yourself and hire a producer to do it for you. So it's a bit less expensive because you're not paying a narrator. You may be the narrator. You send them the files, and then they produce it for you. So they do it in a way that's going to produce you a fairly good, consistent product. And that's what you want. Something nice and consistent that's going to sound comfortable and calm and not going to sort of have people going off into weird directions of not understanding what it is you're trying to get across in your audiobook. And finally, you can do the most expensive thing, which is to hire an audiobook producer to do everything. And they're going to do the whole damn thing. So it is the best result in the end. But considering you're not going to be, sometimes you're not selling your ebook, sometimes you're selling it and not making much from it. You've got to do a bit of a cost benefit analysis and go, well, if I'm going to make $20,000 on this and I'm going to spend $22,000 making it, I'm making a $2,000 loss. that's not a business, that's a vanity project. But if you go, if I spend maybe about $7,000, but I'm really expecting to make 10 out of it, that's a little bit of a profit for you. And for a first ebook, a first audiobook, that's probably not too bad. It probably sets you up really well for the next thing. So if you do a producer or a production agency, you've got to make sure they do what they like, everything you need them to do. So you got to get really clear on what they do before you hire them. So will they convert your ebook to an audiobook and fill with a script a little bit for you? Will they source, hire, and work with the narrators? Will they edit it? Will they produce it? Will they export it? Will they design the cover art and write your book description? And will they submit it to Audible and to all the other different platforms that you want to distribute it on? Do they have deals? Do they have the ability to be able to do that? If that's the case, it's like a publishing house. The same thing as like getting your book published. They do all the work for you. They're doing all the printing, they're doing the editing, they're doing the promotion, all that stuff. Well, that's great. Just be prepared to pay a heck of a lot of money because it is quite an involved task to do all of that. So where you can find help for things to like people to help you do the different parts. So the narration, the editing, the submissions, all that sort of stuff. You can go to Upwork, Airtasker, and Fiverr are probably 3 websites which contain enough people for you to be able to sort of compare what's going on. Bear in mind that not a lot of these people on these platforms are going to be Australian. So voice-wise, maybe not the perfect place to go. There are some on there. There's some Australian voiceovers, some really good quality ones too, that come at a fairly decent rate. But when you're looking at Upwork, Airtasker, and Fiverr, most of those people are in either developing nations like the Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, India, places like that. Or a lot of them are in Africa now these days too. So you're not necessarily going to have someone who speaks English as a first language. So there's a communication thing you're going to have to deal with. And as well, they are not going to necessarily pick up everything, all the Australianism. So if you're recording things yourself and sending them to them, they may not pick up when things actually end and where things start, because we do funny things with the English language in Australia. We don't quite do it right. Some of the most correct spoken English in the world is from India, where every syllable is pronounced and the grammar is impeccable. We Australians, we cut everything off, we slur our words, we contract everything. Some reason the letter T becomes the letter D, and like water, we don't say water, we say water. So it's just those things like that that make the quirks of audiobooks a little harder when you're working with people who aren't familiar with your particular way of describing things and your enunciation as an Australian voice. Then we come to the publishing and the distribution. Now, this is a bit of a world, and I'm giving you a really high level overview here of how the publishing and distribution world works in audiobooks. It's very much similar to how books work with Amazon or with any of those other sort of platforms or publishing houses. The first thing you got to do when you've got all your audio in place, you've done it all, you've got it all produced, it's sounding amazing, is now to prepare your description, your synopsis. So you do that through, number one, an engaging hook that grabs someone in. Secondly, you got to have your important keywords, the things that you want to be found for, because remember, audiobooks are ebooks just recorded. So they're going to be found online. They're going to be found through Google. They're going to be found through Audible and through search engines. So you want to make sure that your keywords, your important ones, are really present in that copy that you've got. And you want it there to be a clear pain and benefit. So there's like what are you solving a problem for someone, presenting the problem and the solution, presenting a problem and a solution in a short, even dot pointed way. And I've got a really good example of that next, which is from the 4-Hour Workweek, which is an amazing book. It's got a really great hook. Forget the old concept of retirement and the rest of the deferred life plan. There is no need to wait and every reason not to, especially in unpredictable economic times. That's a great hook, grabs you straight away. It's like, yep, I don't want that old concept of retirement. I don't want to defer my life plans. I want to do something more. He's also then got great keywords in there. Things like escaping the rat race, 5-figure income, zero management, 4-hour work week, blueprint, dream, escape, all those luxury lifestyle, all those keywords that people who are looking at the 4-hour work week as their ideal lifestyle, that's the sort of things that they're typing into Google looking for. I want to find my 6-figure income. I want to find my 5-figure income. I want to do no management. I want to work 4 hours. I want to live more and work less. Those are the things they're typing into Google. So that's the stuff you've got to try and optimize for. Then we go into the clear pain and benefit. And this is where he's done so well. Tim Ferriss has done the most amazing job of this with the clear pain and benefit. How Tim went from $40,000 per year and 80 hours per week, there's the pain, to $40,000 per month and 4 hours per week, there's the benefit. How to outsource your life to overseas virtual assistants, that sounds expensive and painful, for $5 per hour and do whatever you want. That's the benefit. How blue chip escape artists travel the world. I wish I was there. I'm not. Without quitting their jobs. Oh, that sounds really interesting. How to eliminate 50% of your work, because there's so much work in there, in 48 hours using the principles of a forgotten Italian economist. That's a bit vague for me. But then you want to trade a long haul career. That's the pain point. For short work bursts and frequent mini retirements, there's the benefit. So that pain and benefit being described. This is probably what I would call almost the perfect synopsis of a book. This is what is usually written on the back of the book cover. You know, the synopsis they put on, the blurb they call it, that's on the back cover that gives you an idea. You flip over the book and you go, oh, right, okay, that's what it's about. And then you go, well, I'm going to buy it, or no, I'm going to break it. So that great hook, making sure you've got a hook that gets someone wanting to read more, great keywords. So you're tying people into the things they're actually searching for, and then doing that clear differentiation from what was to what will be, the pain, the benefit, the good, the bad, the problem, the solution. It's a good way of doing it, isn't it? And think about that. There's so many things you can write that can actually benefit from this. This is a lot of the formula between advertising, especially when it comes to infomercials. Infomercials are pretty much about a hook, keywords, and doing that clear pain and clear benefits dichotomy. That's a big word for an afternoon at this time, isn't it? Gosh, I should stick away from words like that. They're crazy. There are technical specifications that come with your book cover image as well. There's lots of variations of covers you might want to get, but when it comes down to it, something which has got a really strong color breakdown, not too much busyness going on, and very clear who you are as the author and what your title is of the book and what a one-liner is about what the book's about, can be really good for you. So the size of the cover is not actually the book cover size. It's around 24 by 2400, which is a square. And it's got to be 24-bit true color. That's going to be a setting that you're going to find in Canva or any of those. They all do that. RGB color, not CMYK, because it's not a printable thing. CMYK color is like the colors in your inkjet printer. You want RGB, which is the color of a cathode ray tube television or a flat screen monitor like we're using here. And it's got to be 72 dots per inch or more in resolution. So in other words, it's web quality pretty much. 72, 96 is really good, 150, but 300 dots per inch is like the gold standard when you're working with like really, really good screens like you'll find on, you know, Google Pixel phones and Samsung phones and iPhones. They're very, very high resolution. They'll look really schmick on there. They won't be all blurred or all pixelated as well. And the stuff that's in your book cover image, it's only going to be referring to itself. It's not going to refer to a book. It's not going to refer to a video. It's not going to refer to a movie. It's going to refer to just to itself. When I say, you can say things like based on the movie, you can say that, but what you're not doing is like taking a copy of the cover of something else, another format, taking a copy of the CD, taking a copy of the eBook, for instance. You're making a specific cover just for the audiobook, so it shows up perfectly on the platforms where audiobooks are distributed. You also want to make sure it's kids safe, very obviously. No porn. Romance novelists, please take note, no porn. Now, the distribution platforms or channels you're going to use, the biggest one in the world, the dominant one is Amazon's ACX, and it's what is used by Audible. Audible's by far, like they got 70% of the market. They've got such a dominant position, and it's only getting stronger every year. Difference, these guys want 7-year exclusivity. They want you to put it on their platform and their platform alone, which also means you can't distribute your ebook yourself. You cannot have it on your website. You have to sell it on your website through Audible. So that's the same with Amazon for book distribution as well. And for ebook distribution, they want 7 years of exclusivity. You go through them. They're going to take a percentage of every sale, and they're going to look at royalties as well. So there's lots of complexity when it comes to how ACX or Audible or Amazon deals with that. Some smaller marketplaces are out there called Soundwise. Now, Soundwise really great is if you just want to self-distribute it. You don't want to be on selling platforms. You want to put it on one platform where you can control what's going on. So they work on a monthly fee basis. There's no royalties or anything like that, just the monthly fee. This is for you to distribute and promote it yourself. Now, the problem is that if you're not on Audible at the moment, you might as well not be doing an audiobook, because that's so dominant as a way of getting the audiobooks out there. Overdrive is what is delivering a lot of audiobooks to libraries. So a lot of council libraries, city libraries, state libraries, but they are very, very selective of the stuff they're going to include on there. So you don't have to pay to be in there. You're also not going to really get paid to be in there, but they're very, very selective on what goes into libraries. So you find that not very much fiction work goes in there, but a lot of non-fiction may get in there if it's got some sort of unique point to it. You can use audiobooks.com. Now, they do individual negotiations per book. The fees and commissions are much, much lower than Audible, and they don't generally require any exclusivity. So you're going to get a little bit more flexibility, but really they may be like the number 2. Downpour is number 3, but they are so far behind Audible in terms of market share, people being present on their platform, that sometimes you wonder whether you should even be there at all. CD Baby is primarily for independent musicians, but audiobooks can go on there as well, and their fees are based on you signing over a small portion of it, like a royalty, for instance. So if you were selling a book for $10, they might go, hey, we want to take a small royalty from that. So maybe 10%, 5%, 2%. Their fees are pretty much based upon the length of what you're going to do. That's one thing I didn't mention about Audible as well, or ACX and Amazon, is that the pricing is going to be fixed. It's not going to be, you don't set the pricing. The pricing is based on the length of your audiobook. The longer it is, the higher the price is. So there's going to be a very set price for it. They want consistent pricing to give the best possible. They're not interested in your comfort and your richness. They're only interested in creating the most consistent and easy to follow process for consumers, for the customers at the other end. So they're obsessed with customer experience. They're not obsessed with you as a supplier. They don't care about your artistic integrity. They don't care about your well-being. They just want to get good products on there that they can sell in a way that fits for their specific model. So it's a harsh way to go, but it is pretty much the only way through. They've pretty much locked it down until someone can come up with something which is going to challenge them. And it's going to be cheaper and much better to the artists, to the voiceovers, or to the writers of those audiobooks. They're going to be setting the terms, really. If you're not worried about making money from your audiobook, you can use things like Podiobooks. Now, Podiobooks is pretty much a podcast way of you releasing your books chapter by chapter. So you do it in sort of episodes. This is a really nice way of doing it if you don't want to sell your podcast. So for instance, not podcast, your audiobook. In my case, I'm not going to be looking to make money out of my audiobook. I may use Podiobooks as a place to go because I use my audiobook as a lead magnet. It's something I send a link to someone to go and listen to. They can listen to it at their leisure, download it to their phone. And it's kind of like a way of helping to increase my credibility as whatever it is I'm trying to do. So that's going to be my approach. You can use SoundCloud for that as well. It's a free service. You probably need to pay by the time you're getting to the length of what an audiobook would be, but it's very popular with podcasters as well. And then there's the Internet Archive, which is like not exactly designed for this, but it is kind of cool for it. You can load up your audio to archive.org, and it's then hosted for free to the general public, wherever they are. They unlimited access to it. It's a not-for-profit project which preserves a lot of the older websites that have come and gone in the world, and produces a way of sort of providing an archive, a backup of things that have disappeared from the internet before. But it also produces a place where you can load up your audio and video and have it viewed for free on something other than YouTube or other than SoundCloud. So you might want to go to somewhere which is a bit more less corporate oriented and more not-for-profit. So that, my friends, is a rundown of audiobooks. I hope you got something out of that. I'm sure you got more questions and you got answers on this. It's a big, wild world out there. The ebook world, when it comes to publishing an ebook, as opposed to just producing a PDF and whacking it on your website, is quite similar. Amazon are very dominant in that, but there's also Apple Books, and there's some other various ways of getting that out there too. So they're not the only game in town. There are others, but when it comes to audiobooks, Amazon and Audible, they really, really do have the lion's share of it, and they're not about to share that anytime soon. If you'd like to talk more about audiobooks, if you'd like to talk more about all these kind of things, if you want to get yourself a free ASBAS Digital Solutions, a one-to-one consultation with myself or one of the many very, very talented people in this realm, please go to businessstation.com.au, where you can go and book individuals in. Your first consult is free if you've never done one before. Your second, 44, and your third through to 24 hours of total consultation time is going to be $66. I thoroughly encourage you to take advantage of it. The program does apparently end at the end of June, although a little birdie tells you it might go longer. I really hope it goes longer because it's served so many businesses so well. Thank you so much. My email address is on screen there. Please feel free to drop me a line. Follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, follow me on LinkedIn, wherever you want to follow me, you can, and we'll be able to do that. Thank you so much for your time, and you have an amazing week and coming weekend as well. And remember to keep spending time working on your business, not just in your business, because after all, it's not going to feed itself.